We've reached a place in following Nebraska football where a mind-numbing loss filled with absurdities is just another day at the office. We'll dive in and talk about it next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And you can start this hoop season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
All right, welcome. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, Connor Happer here from 1620 The Zone. Nebraska loses on Saturday in Southern California to USC. Our apologies for not getting a reaction podcast out there just because there was some travel and there was just a lot.
This is the reaction pod right here. And we're going to look ahead to Wisconsin week all in one.
And so Matt Rule will talk today, and so we'll sort of we'll condense this week a little bit. Mitch, you mentioned it there in the cold open. You know, it's funny. There's there's a couple different sides of this. I guess it all depends on your disposition. I like Nebraska. It had so many of the things that almost all of these games for the last however many years have had, where
all of the stupidity,
the things that the opportunities that were put on an absolute golden plate for Nebraska football to go out and make plays and beat USC on the road and get bowl eligible on Saturday, and it wasn't taken advantage of. At the same time, I didn't think it was that bad. At the same time, I think there's reason to believe that Nebraska can. There's always this glimmer of hope at the end of the rainbow, and I don't know. That's how I felt coming off of Saturday.
Okay, you said you didn't feel it was that bad. I thought you meant like you didn't feel like the things that happened in the game were all that bizarre.
No, I feel like looking forward, there's
hope.
Yeah, there's hope. Right.
I mean, I buy both of those explanations. So I walked out of that game thinking, wow, if that had happened, the scenario that just played out in front of us, where you had a touchdown pass that bounced off a Nebraska defender, you had a huge third down, not conversion, but basically a conversion, put them in 4th and 1 that they converted on the final scoring drive that bounced off the hands of a Nebraska defender. You had some very questionable no calls on pass interference, one that wasn't even questionable. It was just obvious. And that one would have given Nebraska a first down at the 2-yard line with an untimed down 8 at the end of the game. You had all these things that happened. And if that happened to let's just say regular college football team, like, I don't know, Kansas, Boston College, whatever, Florida, the University of Florida, the people who follow that program and cover that program would be up in arms, making a huge deal, screaming about how everything went against them. And at Nebraska, it's like, yeah, that was a Saturday. This was a Saturday football game. I feel like, and I wrote about this coming out of LA, that there's just kind of this acceptance because Nebraska players and Matt Rule came into the post-game interview area, and it was like, yep, could have got that one. We wish we would have got that one, but we're going to move on. 5-5. I looked at some of the fans as they left, and there were 20,000 odd Nebraska fans there, and they're just resigned to the fact that this is what happens to their team. And I don't know. I think maybe that's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's wrong. I was thinking about this weekend. So much of the conversation has been driven by those no calls that you spoke of, specifically the last one in the end zone on Jamal Banks, Would you have preferred it if Matt Rule came up to the post-game press conference after the game and started yelling at like he didn't want to be in the Big Ten, like the Utah athletic director did a couple weeks ago? Like, I don't know.
Way worse call, by the way, than the one that messed up Utah.
It was. Yeah, Nebraska was worse. And I don't know, and then we do the whole Nebraska fatalist thing and say, okay, whatever. Maybe they do get the touchdown, but they're not going to get the 2-point conversion, to tie the
And they're not going to win in overtime.
They're most certainly not going to win in overtime. So yeah, it's there is a little bit of resignation, I think. I think
that if that play had been to win the game, like say Nebraska was down 4 or 6 when that drive began, it would be a completely different conversation, because all who watch that know that Nebraska would have needed to first score from the 2-yard line after the DPI, then convert the 2-point conversion, then win in overtime. It would still quite an uphill battle, but you want to have the opportunity. You'd love to have the opportunity. I think maybe part of the reason that Matt Rule didn't say anything about it, the first I heard about it was from Dylan Raiola when he said that it looked like the defender had a lot of cloth. And I said, to Dylan, what did you see on that play? And he said, well, I'm not here to complain about the officials, but to paraphrase now, it looked like a defensive pass interference. So I was, along with just about all of the Nebraska media, in the other end zone, and we were blocked by a line of, Fox TV people and whoever was there. I don't know how much Rule had seen that play, not the replay that everyone saw later. Like, I saw the replay an hour later, 30 minutes later, whatever, on my phone, and then all day Sunday in social media. I'm not sure how closely Rule had examined that play when he came in to speak to the media. So when we hear from him today, I don't think this is going to be another day where Troy Dannon comes to the press conference to announce that they have a statement from the Big Ten. Like Rule even said, he's not necessarily so upset with the judgment calls. It's more that it was the spots last time against Ohio State when Nebraska had it out with the officiating crew. So in the league, but that was egregious. That was an egregious no call, and they're going to move on and probably have bigger fish to fry because there's nothing you can do to overturn it.
Yeah, it was one of those things where he threw it into double coverage anyway, and so you kind of think, well, did he get what he deserved? Maybe. But, teams get advantages like that all the time. I want to ask you this. Speaking of the fatalism part, so Nebraska's down 28-20 with 2 minutes and 45 seconds left. They get the football, and so we're basically reversing back to the start of this drive that we're talking about. The end is the interception in the end zone. Did you think Nebraska was going to score?
No. So behind the scenes for me, I have to send in print to publish on our site on The Athletic immediately when the game is over. And I was doing a combo piece with Antonio Morales, who covers USC for The Athletic. And in many circumstances where the game was that much in doubt, I would stay in the press box and then until the final second to make sure that my takes were correct and then make my way down to the field. When Nebraska took possession of the ball with 2:45 left, in part because I wanted to get down to the field and I didn't want to miss the press conference, which happened to me once this year, it did happen once this year. I left and I was able to watch parts of that drive in the stairway down from the press box to the field. There were windows in the stairs. The only stadium I've ever been in where you can actually watch the game as you're going down from the press box. So props to the oldest stadium in the world, the Coliseum. They figured out how to make this thing friendly. Lots of things about the Coliseum that I wondered, and some of the other Nebraska media were wondering there, like, how come they have Wi-Fi at the 500-year-old stadium? Like it costs $50 million or whatever to do it in Nebraska. Like, I don't know.
Fair question, probably.
Anyway, yeah. So my post game takes were in, and they were about Nebraska losing. So I did not think Nebraska was going to score, and Dylan took him 56 yards. So that's something. That's a step in the right direction.
I will say that I wasn't really gung-ho. I wasn't convinced that Nebraska was going to score a touchdown, but I was pretty they had some momentum behind them. And so we're going to talk about this throughout the week. Like what was the difference that Dana Holgorsen made on offense just in game one, I thought it was pretty apparent. I thought generally Nebraska's offense looked like it had a rhythm to it. It had almost a crispness to it. It was, they did some things to take advantage of Dylan's ability to get the ball out quick and receivers' ability to just win just right away off the ball. Like, I kind of felt like they were going to get themselves in position, and they did. And so it was different than some of the other drives where Nebraska has now this long streak of having opportunities just like that. And, almost 100% of the time throwing an interception or fumbling the football and
right
not
away, maybe one first down.
Right. So that one felt different to me. But obviously it's the same result. So what can you say?
Okay. Well, that's good. That's something, because it's been 3 consecutive games now since that Indiana game. It's been 3: Ohio State, UCLA, USC, where Nebraska's had possession at the end with a chance to win or tie, and they've all ended in interceptions. But this is the first time the interception has landed in the end zone. So small steps for Nebraska on the road to try to win a 1-score game, to try to get to bowl eligibility, to try to beat a ranked team, which is probably not going to be there for them here in 2024 again. Okay, let's go take a break, and when we come back, we'll get more into the debut of Dana Holgorsen as Nebraska's offensive coordinator. That's next on the Locked On Nebraska Pod. All right, Mitch Sherman here to tell you about 5 Hour Energy. Our friends over there at 5 Hour Energy, they know that being a passionate football fan is not just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through those all-day tailgates, the touchdown celebrations, maybe that agonizing second overtime. This is why they've created Stan the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. It's the energy shot made for super fans just like you, the fans who are first in the parking lot, who are the last to leave. 5 Hour Energy, they see you. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart and a whole lot of energy. So whether you're prepping for that big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why Stan the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot, the shot, is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. The question is this: what's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with 5 Hour Energy. Okay, we are back on this Monday in November. It is a dreary, rainy, drab, cold, ugly day outside in eastern Nebraska. And I'm only talking about the weather. Like, that's got nothing to do with the mood and the energy and what we expect when we get to Lincoln midday. Actually, I think it'll be okay. I think they're gonna hit the reset button. I mean, they're used to this. They're gonna hit the reset button. They're gonna say this team is 5-5. There are still things out there. There is still an opportunity to get to a bowl game. There is another team coming into Lincoln this week, Wisconsin, that has lost, pushed Oregon, the number 1 team in the country, at home, but no different than what Nebraska did when it pushed Ohio State on the road. And it's a winnable game. Hey, look, Wisconsin fired its offensive coordinator on Sunday. Imagine that. Like, these two programs are in these strange, like, kind of like bizarre mirror kind of places right now, both at 5-5. Wisconsin just got done experimenting for 23 games with some guy who has an air raid background. And you can be guaranteed that the Badgers are going to focus on doing what Badgers do, and that's run the football and play physical football with whatever the new system is. I think Luke Fickell promoted his tight ends coach to OC, and I don't expect that that's anything more than a two game or 3 game promotion. But when this thing settles, Wisconsin's going to want to run the football, and Nebraska's going through this similar identity crisis. What does it want to do? Well, what did we see? What did you think of Dana Holgorsen on Saturday in LA?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I can't wait to see what the full bloom of it is. I think there's real pieces there. Like, I think play calling from a sequential standpoint made sense to me. There wasn't any like, why the hell are they calling that with that guy in that spot, running that? Like, every
once or twice I thought that, but that's more results based.
Yeah, I think so too. They seem to highlight the players that were hot, right? It was a Janiran Bonner game. It was a Ja'Cory Barney game. Like there was some really good Emmett Johnson stuff. And not all of that is play designing and play calling. Some of it is the guys have to go out and make the plays, but it felt like Nebraska put the right guys in the right position. It feels like it's been years since Isaiah Nayer had a catch. He had one. It feels like it's been years since they really got Jamal Banks going. I think he had 5 catches on Saturday. That felt like it was a big win for Nebraska. So I think that's what they were supposed to do. I like their tempo. I like their pace. I think that was a change right away. We talked about it going into the week last week. I did feel like there was a difference. Now, at the end of the day, the offense scored 13 points. So it's not good enough. But I think there's some real stuff to hang on to there.
Yeah, snapping the ball when the play clock is not under 10 was a revolutionary thing. And we've seen that in little spurts with Satterfield this year where they've tried to go up tempo for a drive and honestly had success most of the time when they've done that, but it's never been a game-long thing. And Holgerson's going to want to snap the ball with 15 to 18 seconds maybe on the play clock, just a little more tempo. And it's a stress on the defense. I get it. But they have to find some common, some shared ground where they play a style of football that can be effective for both the offense and the defense. A couple things. One, I was disappointed we didn't see Carter Nelson more. Like I have to ask on Monday, Matt Rule, if I know Carter was on the trip.
He played a little bit. I thought at one point they were going to throw a back of the end zone fade up to him because he came in as kind of an X receiver on a goal to go type of deal. And it just didn't. They didn't do it. I don't know what they did on the play, but
yeah,
in there.
I mean, very possibly somebody that Holgerson hasn't had a chance to get to know yet and understand his skill set. Although I think the coaches on the roster probably made clear about all the skill set of all of the players. But he's got to get comfortable in his with his personnel, and you could see that he saw something in Janiran Bonner that he liked. I mean, they threw to Luke Lindenmeyer on this little slip screen where he made a very nice catch. He showed great hands. Fedoni could have been involved more. He played a limited role, and I thought Carter Nelson was somebody that Holgerson would look at and go, okay, that's a guy right there. I can use him, and maybe we'll see that. Maybe we'll see that on Saturday at Memorial Stadium. And then number 2, I really like the halftime adjustment that Nebraska had. Maybe the best halftime adjustment we've seen from Nebraska offensively this year outside of the Purdue game when they were scoreless in the first half and then scored 28 in the second half. And that was a tempo thing. That was just execution more, I think, than it was a lot of scheme. Although we'll give Satterfield credit for that for sure. 28-point second half in West Lafayette against one of the worst Power 5 teams in the country. This was a situation where Holgerson said, all right, look, USC's playing all this man. That's how they're trying to stop us. And we have to find a way to do something on the offensive side to beat that man coverage. So he spread the Trojans out. He said, let's go, sideline to sideline with these receiver sets, get their defense thin, and then run it between the tackles. And they did that 3 times with Emmett Johnson and Dowdell. Yeah, picked up 15 to 20 yards each time. And then later there was a Harburg run that was a different kind of play where he came in on the first play of the drive and started it with a 13-yard run. And that was it. Then Dylan came back in and the drive went nowhere. But I liked the way he sprinkled in some ability to get chunk run plays in the second half. That is crucial for Nebraska to do in order to free up room for Dylan to operate.
Right away to start that third quarter. I thought that was their best drive of the day. Now here's the rub. They didn't finish it. They took a field goal, and then the same thing when they got the strip sack fumble by Ty Robinson picked up by Bayer, and Nebraska took it 4 yards in 4 plays.
Bayer could have scooped and scored that.
I thought so too. Thank you for saying that, because I like one of my things this year has been, why has it been so difficult to tackle or so easy to tackle Nebraska players? It feels like they weigh the weight of air or something like that. And so I'm watching Mekhi Bear. I'm like, that tackled you really. And there's a balance thing. He's got to reach down and get the ball.
You need to make sure you secure the ball.
But thank you. That's the first time I've heard anybody say that this weekend, and I'm glad to get some confirmation on it, because I was like, am I missing something? He should have scored on that play.
Well, as a defender, how important it is if you have an opportunity to take one to the house like Sierra Wright did, you better do it, because this offense, thank goodness for John Hull. I was missing Gus Johnson. I wish Gus could have been there. I wonder if Gus watched that. I wonder if he saw what his boy John Hull did at the iconic venue of the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum to just nail 2 field goals. I mean, they probably had a call, Gus and
they had Colorado. They were doing the game right before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking Gus probably had to watch that and want to talk to him after the game.
Yeah. Yeah, they met up afterwards. Yeah.
Okay. What else do we want to talk about here? Take a break, or should we talk about? I kind of wanted to get into the Nebraska's decisiveness or lack of decisiveness on the 4th down. Should we punt? Should we fake it decision when it was 21-20, second to final drive? Let's talk about that when we come back after this.
But first, a message from our friends from the FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle all of the action, whether it's this weekend or during the week, with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app, it gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. You get the hunch in the middle of a game. You could check out the live stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. Live odds, they change constantly. So when you get a hunch, you jump on the FanDuel Sportsbook app immediately. And if you're a new customer, once again, you can get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. FanDuel.com, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
And I'm going to tell you a little more about Game Time. You've heard us talk about Game Time. They get you tickets, basketball tickets, football tickets, whatever it is. Basketball season is here. There's a huge basketball game coming up in downtown Omaha. Is this Friday night? Is this happening Friday night before the Nebraska-Wisconsin game? Remember when the schedule came out and you saw, Nebraska at Creighton on Friday night before the Huskers host Wisconsin at Memorial Stadium. What a sports weekend coming up here in eastern Nebraska. And if you want to get tickets to either one of those events, but we're talking about basketball here, check it out on the Game Time app. There's a feature called Game Time Picks. It filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals that you will get on great seats. So there's no need to waste time searching through thousands of options. Game Time makes it easy for you to customize your seat in the arena. You can get curated deals to find the best prices. Game Time provides seat views before you buy. They've got the super deal. It's a unique feature that you should go examine. Event cancellation protection. As always, it's also got the lowest price guarantee. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app today. What time is it? Game Time.
All right, welcome back. Let's parse through a critical game management situation here.
Yeah, we can talk about 2 game management things actually.
Yeah, so let's do the punt, no punt, fake punt, go for it, don't go for it, punt situation first. Mm-hmm. So Nebraska's got the ball on, I believe it's about their own 40-yard line. Yes.
Yeah.
And this is in the
fourth quarter.
First.
This fourth quarter. This is 21-20, but right before USC has a long drive to go up 8.
So Nebraska comes out and punt, and then they take a timeout. Then they bring the offense out, and then Dylan Raiola is standing back in the shotgun, and he's saying, "Just hold it." They take the delay game, go back 5 yards, end up punting it. So it looked like to me live as a situation where they kind of were looking for specific things on both reads and didn't get that. and then just punted the football away. I probably would have rather them just hit the gas and go for it there. Although I'm not terribly offended by the way it turned out for them. Obviously, taking the timeout hurts you bad.
Yeah, losing the timeout is the big issue there, and there was a little bit of indecisiveness on the part of Matt Rule, and this is, I think, is getting used to a new offensive coordinator where they've got to communicate. You know, Dana had a play drawn up. Rule said he looked at it. I believe it was 4th and 3. He said, "Let's go punt," but we've got a fake. So they've got a fake ready to go. And if USC would have been in a return set to set up the return, then Nebraska was going to fake it. Well, they were in punt safe, so protecting against the fake. And at that point, Rule had a change of heart. And he said, okay, we can't fake it, but I would like to go for it here. I want to get the offense out there to go for it. So you call timeout and you send the offense out. But again, with the stipulation that if you get a certain look, then there's a route they want to go with that Dana had drawn up. Well, they didn't get that look. So you take the delay of game and punt it away.
And you could tell the play was on, by the way, because Raiola was standing back there, like they were going to go for it, but Raiola was telling the center, like, he wasn't saying, and like you could tell if he said one more thing, they were going to snap that thing and they were going to go.
Yeah. A lot of people thought, and I thought in the moment, that Nebraska was out there to try to draw USC off sides and get the first down that way. And I think the TV crew thought that, and they were critical of Nebraska because it wasn't much of an attempt to draw the Trojans offside. There was nothing going on at the line of scrimmage that could have gotten USC to jump, and that wasn't what was happening. That they were looking at the defense to decide if they wanted to snap the ball, and then obviously you get the 5-yard penalty, which is no big deal before punt. But do that before the timeout. I think that's something moving forward where Rule and the head coach gets involved on a 4th down call, and the rhythm gets disrupted a little bit because the OC isn't deciding everything. He can only call a play if the head coach has said, yeah, call a play. So this is Rule and Holgorsen in their first ever game together, and you're going to expect some hiccups like that. So I'm certainly not going to be too hard on them for that. It wasn't a disaster. It just cost them a timeout. And
I find it impressive, by the way, that Holgorsen, like, I don't know. Holgorsen he was ready. It wasn't on him, right? It was Rule's indecisiveness.
That's pretty much how Rule described it. And then, so without the timeout, Nebraska takes over with 2:45 left after the USC touchdown, down 8 at the 25-yard line. They have a timeout in their pocket. They also have the 2-minute warning upcoming. That should be plenty of time. Like, that's plenty of time. 2:45 and 2 timeouts is plenty of time to mount a drive and give yourself a chance to score if you're moving the chains. Like, if you miss it on 4th down somewhere along that drive, or there's a turnover that's going to blow things up, you shouldn't run out of time with that ability to manage the clock. And Nebraska did not manage the clock well in the final 2:45. The game ended on a 1st down throw to the end zone. Like, should have had 3 more throws there at the end, because the clock shouldn't have been in the position where it was running down. I mean, it was inside of 30 seconds when they were still almost 40 yards away from the end zone. Dillon had 3 throws to the end zone, but that's not good clock management there in the final 3 minutes.
They only got 2 plays. So they got the ball at 2:45, and they only got 2 plays and 6 yards before the 2-minute warning. That's not good enough.
No.
That's not good enough. And then, obviously you're dealing with crucial, like, 3rd downs and 4th downs. And so Rule's thing has always been, okay, like, I know we're running out of time in the global sense, but we also have to get it. And, like, I understand that, but the global sense also really matters here too. So when Nebraska, I mean, I'm looking at the play log right now. So they run a 3rd and 4 coming out of the 2-minute warning, and then they get a yard on a screen basically to Emmett Johnson. And so then they have 4th and 3, and they don't run that play until 1:30 on the clock. By the time they actually get the 1st down and run the next series of plays, they're on the 41-yard line. There's 1:16 left. So you have gained 16 yards, and you've blown through your 2-minute timeout all in the matter of a minute, and it took you 1:30 seconds to do that.
That's terrible.
That's
like, those throws have to go to the sideline.
Yeah.
They have to do things. They know how to run a 2-minute drill. Like, we've seen that from Nebraska. We've seen it at early in the season at the end of the first half, where there was much less time than 2:45 on the clock. So Tough. That's tough look for sure.
Yeah, it's not great. Is there anything else that we need to hit? Just that, coming off the game that'll get lost in the ether by the time Matt Rule talks today.
The missed interceptions from the
God.
Nebraska defense. You had the Malcolm Hartzog ball. There's the still photo that I saw floating around social media where the ball is in his hands.
Think about it, Mitch. Nebraska had 2 plays in this game that went off of their player and the other player on the same play and was caught by the other player.
One for a touchdown and one for a 9-yard gain on third and 10.
A crucial 9-yard.
They're huge plays. Yeah. I mean, if that happens on 1st and 10 at the 25 and the drive ends up in a punt, we're not even talking about that today, but they're huge plays. At the minimum, those should be incompletions. And in like a normal world, one of them's probably a turnover.
Yeah. And then I got nothing for Tommy Hill on Mayava is in the first drive of the game, I guess the first quarter of the game. I think he got a little tighter as the game went along, like better, but he is leaving stuff on a silver platter. So it's good that Sierra Wright got his pick 6, but that one too, that resulted eventually in USC's first touchdown of the game. It just plopped over Tommy Hill's head. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what that is.
I counted 5 balls that Mayava threw that were not picked that were gettable for Nebraska. And that includes the Hartzog, a couple from Hartzog, one from Tommy Hill. There was a ball where maybe I'm being Javen Wright, and there was a ball where maybe I'm being a little bit critical of John Bullock, but he had his hands on it over the middle. It might have just been one hand. That's a tough one, and Bullock made a nice play on that. But 4 or 5 balls that Nebraska could have intercepted, and one of them went for a touchdown. One of them went for a crucial pickup. Another one was, I believe the one was a throw down to the 6-yard line, the one you're talking about where Tommy Hill tried to jump the route and just
I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what he was just out like. I don't know what he was doing. And then there was another one where Hartzog undercut. He jumped a route, a long out route, undercut it just for the ball to go right over his head and get caught for a gain in a first down. Like, it just. Nebraska is given all these opportunities, and Dylan Raiola sliding too early on a 3rd down. It's just, it's hard to understand. It happens to Nebraska seemingly, and Nebraska only.
Not game 10 kind of stuff that you want to see. And Raiola said that he expects to see the most improvement that Nebraska has shown here in this next week between I guess he's talking about game 1 to game 2 in Dana's play calling system, not the normal game 11 to game 12 improvement that you see from a college football team. I know they're grasping a little bit. I think they're kind of desperate right now, and they know what's in front of them with Wisconsin coming into Lincoln and both teams needing a win. News out of Iowa here this morning on Monday morning. Brendan Sullivan, Iowa's quarterback for the past several games, has an ankle injury, I believe, and reported by Iowa media, and is out for the year. So Nebraska's probably going to see McNamara. Yeah. So that takes some juice away from what we've seen out of this Iowa offense recently. Hey, 2 winnable games for Nebraska. Go 7-5.
They can
go
win.
7-5. Mega bowl game. This 4-game losing streak seems a lot less dramatic at that point than it does right now. So.
All right, Mitch. We will have plenty more tomorrow coming off of Matt Rule's Monday press conference. But you're right. I think we'll see. I think we'll see them turn it forward quite well today and be kind of excited about doing so. So we'll see about that. Appreciate you making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, we have the Locked On Big Ten podcast for you. Craig's got you covered over there. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.